Greetings, welcome back to the 50/50 Showcase. This is a tour de force of the 50 level 50 characters that I have in City of Heroes, the Homecoming server, the Excelsior Shard, looking at 50 different characters, a bunch of different builds, a bunch of different archetypes. I am into the final five. I'm looking at my epic archetypes. I'm looking at the Heats and the Veets, the heroes and the villain epic archetypes. And this first one, Brite Horizon, she is on the heroic side. She is one of the Kheldians, specifically a Peacebringer and a human form Peacebringer, because Peacebringers, the big thing that they have as far as what's special or unique about them is they have the ability to form shift. They can be humanish humanoids. They can be these crab, big old tanky alien creatures, or they can be these squids, these flying alien creatures that are blasty versus the tanky crab ones, or in this case, the human ones are much more versatile. So I'm going with a human form, and let me go ahead and show you through the build that I have put together for her on mids and try to explain what am I going for, what am I trying to do. The one thing that is unique, or what sort of the point of these epic archetypes, at least the original ones, the Kheldians, the War Shades, and the Peacebringers like Brite Horizon, is they are sort of this switch hitting. They can pretty much fit any need on a team. So they kind of have that callback to the more traditional, holy trio of archetypes where you got, the blast range damage, dealer. You've got your melee tanky taunting character, and you got your buffing healing character. These Kellians are sort of designed to fit all three of those as needs be, which is part of why they can do this form shifting. Now, my character here, Bright Horizon, I didn't go with the form shifting. I'm just going straight up human form. But even then, they have blasts. They've got melee attacks. They've got shields, so they can tank a little bit. This case, she also has healing, so she can buff and support. So I really went for kind of a well-rounded character here with my choices of powers and whatever. And the other thing that you'll see that's also unique about the Kheldians is that they have a ton of powers to choose from. Most of the archetypes that you've seen or have played yourselves, they have 9 primary and 9 secondary powers, and then they can choose a third power set, a tertiary power set, or the epic power set that has maybe 5 more powers. And that's it. You'll notice here the Kheldians, they've got like a dozen or more of their primary. They've got, a dozen or more of their secondary, and they don't have a tertiary ancillary epic power pool set at all that they use. Everything is baked into these two primary and secondaries. You also still have your other pool powers, like fighting, concealment, experimentation, etc. But they're really designed around just either the primary or the secondary, and the secondary. And then if you go with the form shifting, when you activate the squid form or the crab form, that's going to open up even more powers to your character. So that's sort of their thing that they're known for. Now, because I'm only focusing in on the humanoid form and human form, it made it easier for me to do my slotting. When I show you my war shade a little bit later, I have the triform on him, and that was a harder character to slot because you now have two other forms you need to worry about putting enhancements in their powers. Because when you activate one of the forms, it opens up additional powers, additional power tray, and those powers do not share the same enhancements other than I think like the basic rudimentary, blasts like Gleaming Bolt and Glinting Eye. They have different powers that they activate dwarf form or in their Nova forms. So just be aware of that. If you are going to get into some sort of Kheldian and you want to do the Triform, you're going to be scraping and scrounging for slots. You just don't have a ton. You're not going to be able to. I have a lot of slots and a lot of different powers. If you're doing with the Triform, you're trying to make it much more, more balanced. You're not going to be able to 5, 6 slot stuff. You're going to have to be 2 slotting, 1 slotting, 3 slotting, that sort of thing, depending on how you build it, of course. So hey, let's take a look at what I'm going for here. What was the point? What was the goal? The big thing that I wanted out of this Kheldian, and this might be the stupidest reason to play one, but I like the idea that the Peacebringers could heal their allies for some reason. So you'll notice I took Glowing Touch. A lot of people, they don't take Glowing Touch as a Kheldian as a Peacebringer because you don't care about, healing, buffing your allies. So what's the point about taking it? But for me, I was like, that'd be kind of cool to have that as a a thing that I could do. I could help out the team that way rather than just blasting stuff and beating stuff down. I can heal. And in my play experience so far with this character, she's actually had to do a bit of healing on certain teams when you just don't have a defender there, you don't have a controller, mastermind, or whatever. You may be the primary healing source for that party, especially at middle, lower levels, that sort of thing. So anyway, I took that. That was one of the things I'm like, ooh, I want to do healing. So notice I slotted a bit for healing with glowing touch, and then there's reform essence and essence boost as well. And so I went with, 5 slotting these heal sets. And when I look at the incarnates later, you'll see that I took Vigor, which is also based upon healing as well. Gives you more healing. So that was a thing I went for on purpose with this character. Now, beyond that, the other thing that Kheldians do that I thought was pretty cool is that they have a great debuffing power in all of their attacks, pretty much. Each of their attacks is going to, let me shut off my incarnate so this is more realistic, but each of their attacks, for the most part, does some negative defense. So it debuffs the defense of the target. So every time you hit, the target's defense is lowered, so then it's easier for you to hit them and for your whole teammates. So you can debuff, what I'm seeing here is the bejesus out of a target's defense. So check this out. Gleaming Bolt, just your tier 1 first level blast, does -9. Glinting Eye, another tier 1 blast, that does -18. Radiant Strike, which is a single target punch, I've taken that one. That's -13 with the slotting because I went ahead with Analyze Weakness, an accurate defense debuff set. You've got Gleaming Blast is -18, Proton Scatter is -9, Luminous Detonation -9, Incandescent Strike, which is another punch that I slotted for defense debuff, that's a -13. You've got Dawn Strike over here, -18, Solar Flare, -18. I added up. It was like over 100% defense debuff just with those, core powers. And I've only slotted 2 of them, Radiant Strike and Incandescent Strike, for the minus defense. You'll see later when I go ahead and activate the one incarnate I took. I'll probably just show you right now while I'm talking about it. So if you take a look at Gleaming Bolt, let me lock that in. So it's doing -9%. If I go down here and turn on, I've taken Clarion, Radial Epiphany, and it has the status protection, which you need as a Kheldian because your shields do not give you status protection. It boosts range and it boosts special. The special is going to enhance the defense. So watch when I click this. It goes from 9% up to 16.2. So that's about a 2/3. So it's about a 60, I think 65-ish percent, 67% boost to your specials, to your defense debuffs. So when I have that activated, Gleaming Bolt is now doing the -16. Glinting Eye is -32%. Radiant Strike is -20%. Gleaming Blast 32%. Proton Scatter 16%. So now I'm like absolutely shredding defenses by 150, 160%, just landing multiple hits over and over again with those blasts. And even though the duration I think is only a few seconds of debuff, 5-10 seconds, let's say, I have in all of my attacks, with the exception of the Photon Seekers, I have a minus defense. So I'm going to be shredding enemies' defenses like crazy, especially single target. So I can really focus down, let's say, on a boss or elite boss or an AV and just destroy their defense with just constant layering on of attacks on these things. So that was kind of the other reason as far as, hey, Kheldian, I wanted to play it. This is before I had really ever played one, because back on live, I did play one. I think I got to like level 20 or so. It was complicated. I think this was before the invention system, and so it was a pain. You could only slot accuracy, defense, damage, that sort of thing. But with the invention sets, you can really enhance all these different features of your builds now. So I think the IO system, the incarnate system, as I mentioned already, really helps you make these really well balanced, complete, epic archetype characters. All right, so those were kind of basic goal designs as I was coming into this particular character. Other than that, though, I was like, well, what else can I slot? I went ahead and tried to get as much defense and as much resistance as I could. So if you take a look at my numbers, because I wanted this person to be survivable, because Kheldians they have defense shields. You got Shining Shield, you got Quantum Shield, you've got Thermal Shield. I went ahead and took the Fighting Pool to get Tough, which gives you resistance to Smash Lethal. And so when I put that all together, my defenses combined with my slotting from all my different IO sets, I've got defenses are pretty good, right? They're upper 20s, low 30s. So I'm going to be able to avoid getting hit, like 30% of the time or whatever. And then even when I am hit, my resistances are pretty high in some of the big categories. Smash and lethal, I'm close to 70%. Energy negative, I've got 66%. Fire cold, I've got 55%. I even have some toxic damage when I go ahead and click Essence Boost, which is max HP and resistance to toxic. So I've got lots of ways in which to either avoid getting hit or surviving the hit because of all the resistance I'm pulling out. And then even if I'm taking damage, because I mentioned earlier I've slotted for healing and such, I've got Essence Boost, which is max HP and self heal. This thing is doing a huge amount of healing. So when I click it, I'm going to be restoring, was it 85% or 80% roughly of my health is coming back to me with a single click of this, or essence boosting, getting max hit points, I should say, not necessarily a heal. And then the same thing over here with Reform Essence, which is my other self heal. If I click on that one's going to give me back about 50% of my healing. And then the Glowing Touch, which is the ally heal, that's going to heal an ally for like 34%. So you kind of add this all up. I've got multiple ways of keeping myself alive, high defenses, high resistances, a couple of self heals. I grab the Vigor Core, like I said, which is going to boost my healing overall as well. So I've got health slotted with the Chancer Absorb Preventative Medicine proc. I've got the Numena's Regen Recovery on there. So my regeneration's pretty high. It's like 214% with the slotting I've got going on. So I have lots of ways to survive fights, and also have lots of ways to prolong the fighting because I've got conserve energy, which is going to lower my endurance costs when I click that. I've gone ahead and slotted stamina with the performance shifter proc and regular performance shifter. Combine that with the Numena's chance of recovery. Then my overall recovery numbers are really solid. Taking a look at those, I'm sitting here at 2.7. Well, you guys can't see because my head is in the way. Let me hide myself for a second. I've got recovery sitting around 2.7. My end drain is only 0.7 when I have my Vigor Core activated and stamina is firing its procs. So I've got lots of ways to recover. Got conserve energies, lowering my endurance cost. So all of these things give me survivability and just stamina, combat, endurance, etc., etc., etc. So it's a really strong across the board build. The one weakness that Kheldians have is they don't have a mez protection in their shields, unlike other melee characters would, like scrappers and stalkers and tanks and brutes. But what they do have, or what I did to kind of fix that problem, is I went ahead and took Clarion, like I mentioned earlier, as part of my Incarnate selection. That gives me the status protection I need. So I click this, it's pretty much got me, save protected. The duration's 90 seconds. The recharge is 120. So, there's that 30-second window where I can be stunned or held. I have a break free in my pocket just in case that happens. So I've got lots of options, lots of choices, lots of methods to survive. But the big surprise for me with this character that I had no idea was that this character can lay down damage like you wouldn't believe. Part of it is just because of the minus defense, I'm able to hit a lot more often, but just the sheer amount of just explosive destruction I can put out. If you take a look at just like Dawn Strike as an example here, let me lock that down. Where is it? Info on Dawn Strike. This thing is doing like 560 damage. I mean, that's just slaughtering things. I've got Assault Core as well. When I can activate that, that's going to give me a chance for plus damage. Every time you hit, I think it procs a plus damage boost overall. I'm throwing in Reactive Core Flawless, which is the minus resistance proc, so that will stack 5 times and also deals some extra DOT as fire. The minus resistance proc is minus 2.5, I think it is. Yeah, so whenever you hit and the reactive core procs, you're going to lower the damage resistance of your enemy by 2.25%. So, translation, you bang away on something, not only are you shredding its defense, you're going to lower its damage resistance 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10%, 12.5% would be at your cap as long as you just keep hitting, hitting, hitting. So you're going to be doing that much more damage to your targets, plus the damage boosting from the assault, core that I was taking. So she has really surprised me just with the sheer amount of damage that she was able to put out. So there you go. That's sort of the plan. I really hadn't have a lot of experience with Kheldians walking into this, but I just used my, common sense experience all my other characters. So I built for just a lot of resistance, a lot of defense, and then just the amount of debuff I'm able to throw out there with the defense debuffing, some of this resistance debuffing, and that's just the amount of damage I'm able to put out with the resistance debuffing plus the assault core, damage boosting, but just all of these AoEs that I have that this character surprised me with. Anyway, enough talking about it. Let's go ahead and do a little solo showcase. I'm going to take on some council paper missions in Granville. I'm going to start with +2 times 6 just to kind of get my feet wet. Then I'll bump that up to +3 times 8. I'm a little concerned with this character just because Kheldians do have an Achilles heel, and that is quantum rifles that a lot of enemies will spawn with, which does extra damage to Kheldians, can stun them, cuts through their defenses and shields. So I got to watch out for that. The other thing I want to watch out for is that my initial testing from my first 45 characters was all done before the latest update to the Homecoming server, the latest page 7, I think it was, that came out. And in the latest update to the game, which was just like a month ago or so, they updated the council to make them tougher. So I'm curious to see how that plays out in these solo attempts. I'll find out real soon, and so will you. All right. I'll catch you on the solo missions. See you then.